and thank you for joining me on the show today. This is the Now Talks, a collection of inspiring personal stories and leadership lessons from some of the world's most iconic leaders. It is the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. My name is Dr. Tina Allton, and I'm your host for today and the coming weeks. Welcome again to the Now Woman Talks, which is the podcast for women in leadership. Over the past few weeks, we've been looking at various subjects. How can we break the mold as women leading? How can we be more, intentional about the collaborations that we are creating with other people? Because to be a leader, you do need to collaborate with others, whether it's your team or other business partners or friends or whatever it is. So this week, I want us to look at how being aware of who we are, our self-awareness, and the huge role that it plays in our leadership. And this has really come about because I'm reading a book, which is a book I read every year. I try to read it twice a year, and it's by John C. Maxwell, who's one of my mentors, called 15 Laws of Growth. And I'm really reading about the law of awareness, and you must know yourself to grow yourself. And I chose this topic or the subject also because I was reading a post from a friend of mine on Facebook talking about the fact that over time, some people or in your lifetime, not everybody is going to know your value. Not everybody is going to appreciate or value who you are. And the post said, in your life as a leader, remember that not everybody will know, understand, or appreciate your value. Just make sure that that person is not yourself. Just make sure that you are not the first to do that, which means that as leaders, we must first of all, know our value, know our worth, know what it is that we bring to the table, especially as women leaders. And I believe that for us to really be the first person to know our value, hold our value, understand our value, etc., comes from awareness, a deep sense of awareness, right? And that is, I have to know who I am. I have to know myself in order to be able to grow. And I always say, as a woman of faith, that I'm not, all by myself. I am who I am by the grace of God. It is the grace of God that makes me who I am. And on a daily basis, every single day, as I wake up and see the work that we're doing, the impact that is happening, I know that it is nothing except by the grace of God. So for me, it's about, by the grace of God, I am who I am. And again, through that same grace, I get to understand every single day. I get a greater understanding, awareness of who I am, because I know that I'm not of myself. Now, you may be thinking, well, I'm not of the same faith as you, Tina, and that's perfectly okay. We're all created for greater good, for greater works. And so whether you're the same faith as me or not, that is really not the question here. The question is that you have been called to lead. You're in a place of leadership. And in order to be effective in your leadership, to be impactful in your leadership, it requires that you understand yourself, you know yourself in order to be able to grow yourself. So I don't know if you've, watched this movie before, heard about it before. It's called the 51st Date. And that's because I can't remember the movie, but if I recall, they go on a date. A young man falls in love with another woman, and only to discover that she can't remember him the next day. In fact, she can't remember anything at all that happened. So every time they go on a date, it's like a whole new date altogether again, right? And so you kind of like think, well, that's a bit silly because, well, How can you not remember anything at all? But the thing is, I think as leaders, if we are not aware of ourselves, what makes us who we are, how we lead, right? And that can be even things like for example, understanding our strengths, what are the key areas that we can grow that is integral to our success. For example, we need to understand, okay, how do I make decisions? For example, what kind of things really impact me? For example, being able to understand, okay, this, when I'm in this kind of state of mind or that frame of mind or whatever it is, I find that I'm really, really sharp, I'm alert, I'm whatever, right? And so it's very important that as we are leading and as we are influencing people, we've already talked about this. Leadership is influence. It's nothing more, nothing less. That's all it is. It's being able to influence other people and hopefully for the best. So as you're leading, as you're influencing others, if you're not being aware of, for example, the mistakes that you have made, then, guaranteed you're going to repeat them. And as leaders, we want to be able to remain aware of, I mean, it's inevitable. Everybody makes mistakes, whether we like it or not. Every person does make mistakes. So that's not, if you've ever made mistakes before, it's no biggie. You're not alone. Does that make sense? You're not alone. Everybody makes mistakes. But I think what becomes worrying is if you keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. I think there's a definition of insanity, and that is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I think as leaders, that's why the sense of awareness is very important. Now then, how can you be aware if you actually don't have a sense of direction, right? It's like if you are driving somewhere, how do you know that you're lost, right? If you have no sense of bearings, right? You have to be able to have a sense of direction because that is what helps you to reach your potential. It's what allows you to know where you're currently at, where you're going, and for example, what is in the middle. Okay. To have a sense of direction or to know yourself, it's like, the map that you'd use or the sat nav. It's like you need to be able to know where it is that you're going. What is your ultimate? What is your purpose? What is your vision? What does that journey look like? And it first starts with having a sense of direction, a sense of where you're headed to. And in John's book, he talks about like there's three kinds of people when it comes to having direction in your life. Number one is the people who don't know what they would like to do. It's like, oh my gosh, they don't know what they want to do. And I think the best way to spot them is that they're confused. They just have like zero sense of purpose. They don't have any sense of direction for their lives or whether they're growing, not growing. There's total confusion, total chaos. They just go with the flow, and it's really going to be impossible to actually reach your potential or really achieve anything meaningful, really, because there is absolutely no sense of direction. Like it's like, where am I shooting, right? The second kind of people is those who know what they would like to do, but then they don't do it. And these people are usually frustrated. It's like there's a difference between being confused and being frustrated. Every day, it's like they are able to experience the gap of where they're at and where they want to be. So they know where they're at, they know where they want to be, but they're just not doing anything to cater for the in between, which is what's in the middle, right? Because it's not enough to know where you want to be. It's not enough to just know where you are. You've got to know where you're at, where you want to be, and what you've got to do in order to get to where you want to be. So if you're not doing what it takes, then it just means you're essentially marking time. Now you may be saying, okay, Tina, why would I know what I want to do and not do it? It's because sometimes they just worry. They worry that, okay, I can't do it, or it's going to cost me too much, or this is too much, or they just procrastinate, for example, or most of the times because they're not willing to pay the price, right? Even when the opportunity is right in front of them, when the opportunity is being handed, on a plate to them, they still just don't do. And the core underlying reason, I've come to know in my experience for, leaders like that is because of fear. The fear of the unknown, fear of the what ifs, fear of the what's, right? The what nots. And these are all nothing but fear because nothing has happened, right? And so if you give in to fear, fear of unknown, the thing is, life is one big risk. To get up, to put your clothes on, to step outside, it's all taking a risk. To cook food, to eat food, to put your washing machine on, to put the iron on, the kettle on, everything is a risk. You've got to be able to take risk, meaningful risk, risks that bring growth, risk that create impact, risks that transform others' life. And that's what we're supposed to do as leaders, is to be able to understand what really is a risk and what isn't. So you don't want to be like one of those people who know what they have to do, but then don't do what they have to do because of fear. Okay. The third kind of people is people who know what they would like to do and then they do it. They know themselves, they have a strong sense of passion, they're focused in their purpose, they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, and they focus on building on their strengths whilst growing in their weaknesses. They understand, you know what, hey, this is my purpose, this is my vision, this is what I was created to do, this is what I was called to do, this is my calling, and they just go for it. And one word for that is fulfilled. Okay, so if you're not feeling fulfilled in yourself as a leader, then you got to ask yourself this question: am I truly doing what it is that I am called to do? Okay, am I truly doing what it is that I am called to do? And if you're not feeling fulfilled, then perhaps that is the reason why. So next thing I want us to look at in this subject is, I know that for some it's a case of, okay, how do I find my purpose? How do I find my passion? I was listening to the radio, and one of the ladies, the presenter, was saying, hey, I don't know what my purpose is yet, but I'm going to make impact. And I'm thinking, how are you going to make impact if you don't know your purpose? So I want us to look at a few ways, practical ways that can help you to identify what your purpose is or your passion. And number one thing to ask yourself is, do you like what it is that you're doing now, right? It can be a job, it can be volunteering, whatever it is that you're doing. Are you able to answer that question honestly with yourself? Do you like what it is that you're doing? If you're not liking what it is you're doing, then you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, or you're just doing it for the sake of money. And that's not going to bring you fulfillment. So that's the first practical tip to ask yourself is, do I like what it is I'm doing now? Number two is, what would you like to do? Okay, so you've got to know there's a difference between finding your purpose or passion and actually reaching your potential. Okay, so how are you going to be able to do that? What would you like to do, right? What would you like to do? Is, sit down, take some time out with yourself. I call it, take a dream day and dream, what is it that you would like to do? What really is it? It might not just be one thing. It can be 100 things. If it's 100 things, just write it down. But as you're writing down, identify, now let's say you've written 100 things down. Now go back and cross 90 off and just leave 10. What are those 10 things that really puts a fire in your belly? Now from 10, go down to 3 And then, go down to 2 and ultimately 1. What is the one thing that if you had to choose that you would be able to do it day in, day in, day out, right? And so that's a really good way to know what would you like to do. Number 3, can you do what you would like to do, right? Can you do what you like to do? For example, you've got to have some sort of criteria to know, that if you decide to have what it is that you want, are you able to do it? So depending on what it is that you want to do, you have to do a little bit of homework. Okay, what are the rules? What are the laws in this land? What do I need to do in order to get started, right? You have to ask, can you do what it is that you want to do? Because just the fact that you want to do it doesn't mean you can do it, right? So you've got to be able to at least at the very minimum, look at what is it that you need to do, and are you able to do it? Is there any specific laws, rules, regulations, for example, compliance, details that you have to have in place in order to be able to do that, right? And then from there is, do you know why you want to do what you like to do? Do you know why? What is your why? And your why must not be that, what you call it, hey, I want to make money or I want to help people. Yes, you want to help people, but why do you want to help people, right? Why is it that you want to help people? What is that why? And dig deep, be honest with yourself, and write down at least 7 whys. Why is it that I want to do what I would like to do? And then make sure that these whys are actually true, honest, pure intentions. Because if your why is not pure, if your why is not true, if your why is not authentic, you're going to struggle. You're going to fail. You're going to have challenges. And ultimately, you're not going to be fulfilled because that why for what you're doing is not truly, truly true. So make sure it's not money. Okay. If you really focus on your why, you will make great money in the process of doing why it is that you're doing what it is that you're doing. The next thing to ask yourself is, do you know what to do so you can do what you want to do? Do you know what to do, right? And I think not knowing what to do, thinking, I really fancy some steak or whatever it is, or I want to build a multi-million-dollar company. Well, do you know what to do? How do you start? What is it that you've got to do? What's the first thing you do? How do you, build from 0 to say your first 10,000, your first 100,000, your first million, 10 million, and whatever, right? You've got to be able to know what is the first thing to do. It's like building a house, right? You first have to have a vision for the house. You've got to know, what does the house look like, feel like, what materials using. You've got to have all of those basics. Then what do you do next is speak to an architect and share that vision with them. They're able to, put it into drawings. Then you find a builder, so there is a process to be able to do what it is that you want to do. So you've got to be able to understand, what do I need to do in order to do what I want to do? Okay, there's lots of do's. So number 1 is action. You've got to take action. You've got to start now. The next best time to get started really is today. It's not tomorrow. It is now. So you've got to take action. And then find some accountability. Find people in your life that you can share your vision with, and they can hold you accountable. Next one is attraction. Okay, what are the steps that you need to take? Who is in your environment, right? Are you in an environment that is helping you to be committed to the process? Are you in an environment that is empowering you to be able to keep your focus? What is, what is, ask yourself all that. The next thing is, do you know people who do what you like to do? Okay, so you've got to find other people who are doing what it is that you're doing. And often it's like, oh, well, let me tell you a story. So way back, oh gosh, I can't remember how many years now, but at least it's been more than eight, 9, probably even 10 years ago, right? And I really wanted, my husband is in healthcare, so I wanted us to really streamline our healthcare processes, our systems, how we treated our patients, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'd been to an event in Florida, and I stayed at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando. And it was like, wow, the service was impressive. I just loved the entire experience. And I thought, you know what, this is a whole different industry, hospitality industry. We're in the medical industry. So it's like complete extremes. But the thing is, they are doing what it is that we wanted to do. So what do? I find the HR manager and I avail myself to be mentored to be able to understand the process, how they've got to where it is they are. And I was able to implement that in our family business, albeit completely separate industries. And guess what? We then were we won an award for being the best family owned business in all of London, United Kingdom. Can you imagine that? So you've got to be able to find who's doing what you like to do and make yourself available. Be committed, be committed. And that means that pay people if you have to pay them for their time, for their expertise, because guess what? It will save you a lot of time, it will save you a lot of mistakes, and it will save you so much more than you can actually put into money. Be consistent. So if you're going to meet them every day, not every day, obviously, but monthly, whatever it is, be committed to that, right? And let me just reiterate this. You can never underestimate the power of mentorship, having somebody to mentor you who is doing what it is you're doing that would help you to get to where it is that you want to get to. Be creative, be purposeful, spend time ahead of the call preparing for that interaction you're going to have for them. So don't just come, oh, can you do everything for me? Can you tell me everything? No, come, having been prepared, and be reflective. Spend time after, a call with your mentor. Don't just say, oh, I want to, stop picking people's brains, for example, because if you're picking my brain all the time, I'm not going to be left with anything to do what I'm called to do. How am I going to focus on my purpose? So don't be a leader that just picks everybody's brain. Be reflective. If you have the opportunity to sit with a mentor when you're done, sit down and reflect. What is it that you have learned, right? And be grateful. When the greatest gift you're ever going to get is the gift of time. Okay. So I hope that kind of like helps you to be able to know how to at least prepare, for your first mentorship call, if nothing at all. Right? Should you do what you like to do with them? Okay. So that's a great question. If you haven't already listened to the podcast about being intentional about, building purposeful, what do you call it, collaboration. So you can listen to that because we go a bit more in depth about it. So if you find a mentor, I really want to take time and reiterate on this. If you find a mentor, right, you have to be teachable. I think as a leader, we can have the tendency to think, well, I know this, I've been here before, I've done this, 450,000 years now. It does not matter. You have to be teachable. You have to stay hungry. You have to stay nimble. Okay. Always prepare. I've already talked about that. Always prepare ahead of time for that call. Set agenda, ask great questions, demonstrate what you've learned. I've already talked about that's being reflective, right? And be accountable for what you've learned. So, and one of the, not one actually, but there's so many things you can actually get from having a mentor, and that is strength. This is what you would want to look for in a mentor. Okay, is what are the strengths? What are the temperament like in terms of what's the character like, right? What is the track record? And don't just take what you read on Facebook, please. Everybody on Facebook is an expert and a guru, and it's like, oh my goodness, like really do your homework. Ask them, what is your track record? What is your history? What have you done before? Who have you worked? What are the results that you've gained for them? What are their passion? And also you will be able to get from a mentor great advice, support. They become a resource for you. They help you to put together a game plan. It's a great place to get feedback for what it is that you're going, and a great source of encouragement. I cannot I cannot even emphasize. I would be nowhere near the woman I am today if I didn't have the mentors I have in my life now. Okay, so you really want to. You've got the tips here how to find a mentor and why you need a mentor or what a mentor can do for you. Okay, the next thing in terms of, being able to reach your purpose, your vision, your calling, whatever you want to call it is, will you pay the price to do what you want to do? Now, paying the price is not just about, paying your suppliers, but you've got to be disciplined in yourself. It does too. To focus and to build your purpose requires great levels of discipline, self-discipline, holding yourself accountable, right? Being willing to do what sometimes nobody else wants to do, because everybody has a different purpose. And so you want to be able to take the right steps. You want to be willing to pay the price. And that is find the right mentors, pay your suppliers, find a team. Don't do it all by yourself. Don't carry it all. Don't think only me can do it, because we're all called to community and we all need each other and what it is that we bring to the table for one another. So the next thing is, when can you start doing what it is you like to do? And really, the time is now. It is right now. You cannot postpone anymore. If you're procrastinating, thinking, I'm waiting for the right time. Well, this is your cue. You've got to start now. Okay. What would it be like when you get to do what you like to do? I think I already gave you the clue, is being fulfilled. When you get to do what it is that you're called to do, you will be fulfilled. You'd be fulfilled. You would be full of life. You'd be full of energy. You'd be full of just joy. You would be overflowing to the brim. And everybody that encounters you would be impacted, would be touched, because you can't be fulfilled and not touch the lives of others. You can't be fulfilled and people meet you and they just go away the same. There is something that oozes when you're fully fulfilled. So some practical application for you in building your awareness and leading well and knowing yourself, building on your strengths, being able to be fulfilled as a leader is understanding what you like to do, what talents, skills, opportunities do you have that will support the desire that you have, right? So consider, have you been presented with an opportunity right now in your life? I don't know, but if you have been, that could be the beginning. That could be the door to your breakthrough. And you want to also look at what are your motives for wanting to do what it is. What is your why? Okay, what steps can you take to start doing what it is that you want to do? And that is being aware of, what do you want to do, where you want to get to, where you're at, what's in the middle, taking action and being accountable. And whose advice can you get to help you along the way? Find a mentor that would be able to help you. What price are you willing to pay? It will cost you time. It would cost resources. It will cost you to sacrifice. It will cost you to be disciplined and so much more. I could go on and on and on, but are you willing to pay the price it costs in order to live a fulfilling life, right? And where do you need to grow the most? You have to focus on your strengths and overcome the weaknesses that you have. That, if you don't overcome the weaknesses, that we all have a weakness of some sort, that, my friend, will stop you from reaching your potential, reaching your goal, reaching your why. So in as much as you're building on your strengths, find ways to overcome, outgrow, and strengthen your weaknesses. So I hope this has been useful and enjoyable to you. If it has been, as always, let us know. What else would you add? How have you applied this? How has this impacted you? And until we come your way next week, enjoy. And remember, you are called to lead. So lead well. Take care and see you again next week. Bye-bye. And that's all for this week. You've been listening to Dr. Tina Allton with the Now Talks, the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. all that remains is for me to say, have a fantastic week, stay safe, and reach out if you need any help now at nationsofwomen.com. Until next time, enjoy the pursuit of your potential, and remember, now is your time.